No questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Rohrbach, a second from Mr. Lemmy to approve the following transfers in Cumulative Bridge: 100,000 from Bridge 39 to repair and maintenance, 20,000 from Bridge Inspection to repair and maintenance, 12,000 from Culvert Pipe to repair and maintenance, 125,000 from Bridge 789 to repair and maintenance. Then the MVH Fund 1173, 100,000 from bituminous to equipment, 2,000 from stone and gravel to road signs, 25,000 from stone and gravel to equipment. Then 1176, 12,000 from overtime to gas, oil, and lubricants, 1,500 from overtime to tires and tubes, 10,000 from overtime to garage and motors, 3,200 from truck drivers to equipment, 4,000 from equipment operator to equipment, 9,500 from part-time to equipment, and 12,000 from perf to equipment. Any other questions or comments from the members? Public input? Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Leming,
Yes.
and Mr. Middleton.
Yes. Motion carries. Merry Christmas, have a good year.
Thank you.
Next item under new business, item C, County Emergency Medical Services, Dwayne Ashcraft for the transfer of appropriations in the general fund.
Yeah.
Sir,
Request a transfer of $2,000 to be transferred from line item 31602, which is run reimbursement, to 21601, which is medical supplies, covering unanticipated expenditures.
Move approval.
I have a motion from Mr. Lobach, a second from Mr. Connor to approve. Then the Grant County EMS, a transfer of $2,000 from run reimbursements to medical supplies. Any other questions or comments from the members? Public input? Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Leming,
Yes.
and Mr. Middleton.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to these two gentlemen as well. Seen them here for many years.
Last time.
Well, this is
We're gonna be
almost
back.
my last time, but not quite.
That's you said. I said, you're gonna be back. Next item under new business, item D, County Central Dispatch, Kevin Hicks, with the transfers of appropriation within 9/11 Fund and Central Dispatch Operation Fund.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm needing to transfer, $3,000 from my 1222 from my training and education. There's a modification though in how it will be transferred. I'm needing, 2,700 to go to salaries, $50 to overtime, $240 to perf, $10 to IDEX terminal.
At your table this evening, Angie gave you an updated copy of the request. Questions or comments regarding the E911 Fund 1222? And county fund.
And we, due to a higher than expected radio contract for maintenance, I'm needing to transfer $8,000 from the 1222, 36,500 to contractual, 30,700 to cover that.
Questions or comments? Proceed on.
And from 4922, my operations budget, I need to transfer $10,000 from salaries to overtime.
Any questions or comments regarding this request?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Rohrbach, a second from Mr. Connor to approve within the Grant County Central Dispatch Operating Fund, 1222, transfer from training and education at 3,000 to salaries, $2,750 to overtime, $240 to perf, $10 to IDEX. Also within the 1222, repair and maintenance to contractual service in the amount of $8,000. And then within Fund 4922, from salaries, 10,000 to overtime, part-time. Any other questions or comments?
I got a quick question. How many people are we down?
Down 4. We had one start, 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
There's no other questions or comments. Public input? Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Lemon,
Yes.
and Mr. Middlesworth.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you, gentlemen, for your dedicated years of service. Much appreciated.
Next item under new business, item E, County Area Plan Commission, Ryan Malott with the transfer of appropriations.
Evening, gentlemen. I hope mine's pretty simple. We're asking for a transfer of $1,600 out of Garage and Motors to go into our part-time employment. Somehow we have miscalculated our 2 part-time employees. Permit clerk has averaged 26.44 hours per week. Our code enforcement secretary has averaged 24.29 hours per week, but somehow we ran out of funds.
Is there any questions or comments?
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Rohrbach, a second for Mr. Connor to approve the transfers within the Area Plan Commission. $1,600 from Garage and Motors to, I guess $500 from Garage and Motors to the part-time permit clerk, and then $1,100 from Garage and Motors to the part-time code enforcement. Any other questions or comments from the members? Public input? Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Lemon,
Yes.
Mr. Middlesworth.
Yes. The part-time accounts is all the same.
I was gonna say it's the same.
That's where.
I have Dallas 2 separate names, you corrected me, so they're both the same numbers on this.
Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Thanks, Brian.
Next item under new business, item F, County Commissioners. Mr. Wright, with the transfers of appropriation, general fund, and also the CCD fund.
President, council members. Just a couple of housekeeping things in here. You can see there's some smaller ticket items in here just to go ahead and balance the accounts, but there are some large numbers there. The 23,000 is coming from 17,100 to 17,300. The group insurance, we did have larger claims, as Mr. Ward was talking about, and so that's the reason we came up short there. The $43,000 that we're requesting from 17,700 to 3708. My understanding that there was a final pay for housekeeping for the buildings that was actually, should have been paid in 2021, but was paid January of this year. So that's where the $43,000 came in there. And then the $2,000 for the equipment. That was, see here, the equipment things brought up. The message board that the EMS lost in the wind, as well as a laptop went out on us that we wasn't expecting. So that's the reason for the $2,000 to come in out of that, out of the Commissioner's General Fund. Take any questions.
Are there any questions from the members?
I did want to clarify something Mr. Wright did say on the group insurance piece. That would not be because of claims paid, because
Okay.
claims paid come out of another fund.
Okay,
This is just transfers for employer's share of
okay,
insurance contribution. So it's not claims. Just
okay,
make sure you
very
know.
good. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions or comments? Entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I would make a motion to approve Commissioner's request as presented.
Second.
CCD. I have a motion from Mr. Lemming, a second from Mr. Connor to approve within the Commissioners General Fund the following transfers. Social Security to group insurance, 23,000, EDC legal to vehicle insurance, 1,000, perf to janitorial, 43,000, EDC legal to telephones, $500, EDC legal to trash, $500, EDC legal to equipment, 2,000. And within CCD fund, the following transfers from sheriff vehicles to equipment in the amount of 5,000, sheriff vehicles to contractual in the amount of 4,000. Any other questions or comments from the members? Public input? Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Lemming,
Yes.
and Mr. Millsworth.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas. Thank you for your service, guys. Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next item under new business, item G, County Treasurer Tiffany Griffin, approval of the audit adjustment, consideration of an ordinance to establish processing fees for mobile home transfers and moving permits.
That's just a mouthful.
We could put an acronym to it.
Yes. Well, I will try not to take up much of your time this evening. I do want to say thank you for taking the time this evening to meet with me. In the spirit of transparency, this evening, the Treasurer's Office is coming forward to discuss the State Board of Accounts recommendation following the 2021 audit for reconcilement purposes. Over this previous audit period, I worked directly with Field Auditor Mary Jane Bartram. At the beginning of the 2021 audit, Mary Jane and I sat down in the Veterans Affairs Chambers and discussed how, prior to the conclusion of this audit, we were going to work diligently to figure out the best course of action for this inherited chaos of the bank reconcilement and cash book errors stemming from as late as 2010, as there has never been an accurate figure to balance back to with these reconcilements. State Board was not certain what that would look like, but according to Mary Jane, she was going to get me figures that would get us reconciled on both the bank reconcilement and cash book. According to State Board of Accounts, these issues should have been resolved back in 2010, if not 2011. State Board had faith that the issues would have been resolved in a timely manner, but that the discrepancies were never properly taken care of. Therefore, between several years, treasurers, chief deputies, and field audit officers, there have been too many hands overseeing the books with never a clear resolve. For the audit, there are internal controls in place in the Treasurer's Office. However, due to several long-term reconcilement issues, the internal controls are deemed as ineffective until there is a true correction to resolve these bookkeeping issues. State Board has been through the reconcilement and based on the lengthy time frame, cannot determine whether proposed adjustments in years past were completed or not. Several items, due to the condition of the bank reconcilement, could not even be found or understood as to where they originated from. At this point, it is imperative to point out that several of the items that have been continuously carried are in the amount of $183,945.71 since 2011. Each year since, at the end of the audits, we have been given an accumulative figure for each year's audit end. And each audit did not include the total amount off the bank reconcilement for all previous years in total. After Mary Jane spoke with her superiors at State Board of Accounts, what was proposed is an adjustment that needs approved by the county council to get rid of all items prior to 2021 and the unidentifiable items on the bank rec and cash book to get a clean slate for reconcilement purposes moving forward, since this has not been the case since 2010. The adjustment would take place on December 31st, 2021 cash book and would get the reconciliation back in line for the ending balances at the year end of 2021. The bank reconciliation and cash book would be a clean slate moving forward. The cash book showing true and accurate figures for what amounts are in each bank account. The clean bank reconciliation would have known items that are identifiable between the ledger and the cash book. The proposed adjustment concerns at the best figured balance, a shortage of $273,117. State Board has proposed that the $273,117 come from the general fund unappropriated. This ensures that no budget line is affected. These funds will correct the cash book and clear out the unidentified items stemming from 2011, as well as clear up the items on the bank reconciliation that are unidentifiable. State Board has stated that looking over the reconciliation and that amount which is being requested, the numbers are close but not quite to the penny due to so many issues lasting for so long that they just simply cannot give an accurate variance to balance completely back to. Upon approval of the council this evening for the adjustment, the correction and adjustment will be completed tomorrow, Thursday, December 22nd, with Mary Jane overseeing. Mary Jane will meet with me on site and walk through the adjustment to make certain that everything is handled correctly with no issues from start to finish. Mary Jane and I have also been reworking the bank reconciliation for 2022 with the new figures from State Board of Accounts that have been presented to me in order to move forward. So tomorrow we will also be overseeing that information, making sure that we are moving forward on the correct path. If the adjustment is not approved by the council this evening, it will then be my responsibility to go to the legislative committee at the state level. It is my hope that with your approval tonight, that we can avoid the expense of additional resources and time that would be accrued by not approving this recommended adjustment. These reconciliation issues have plagued Grant County for several years now, almost 12, to be quite frank. When I accepted the job as Grant County Treasurer, I was aware that there were issues with the reconciliation. The inherited nightmare of bank reconciliation and cash book has been overwhelming, for a lack of a better word. However, as Treasurer of Grant County, it is my responsibility and duty to do what is best for the taxpayers in the communities in which I serve. I concur with the State Board of Accounts recommendation for this adjustment to get the bookkeeping back in a financially acceptable order. In the spirit of integrity, I'm asking for this adjustment to be completed. This is not an easy request that I have been tasked with, knowing that this could have been corrected years ago. However, this adjustment will help to pass along a cash book and bank reconciliation that is in good standing for not only future treasurers, but for future taxpayers alike. This will ensure that no one else will have to deal with an inherited nightmare, but that I have been tasked with. No matter how difficult it is, it has been getting the treasurer's office back into an efficient office. It cannot go without being said that the team in the treasurer's office has been monumental in allowing changes to help for the betterment of the innermost workings of the office. That team has been an immense support, taking on additional responsibilities and duties to allow the office to work at the capacity in which it should. They do not stand in the way of change, but they encourage it. Everything that we have been able to accomplish in these last handful of years, although daunting and overwhelming, has not deterred our office from stepping up and getting the job done. We are not perfect. We are humans, and therefore mistakes will continue to be made. However, I once had a boss who told me that mistakes are fixable problems. They help us to know what not to do. Therefore, we learn and we grow. If you cannot grow, then you need to go. That is the mindset that I continue to have while working in the treasurer's office. We are only as valuable as our knowledge. With that being said, we will continue to lead on a path of making changes that are for the betterment of Grant County and its citizens when it's a simple task or a difficult request, because Grant County deserves a team that won't sweep issues under the rug. They deserve people who will do hard things to make it better for everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Are there any questions or comments about this request?
How does this work into our actual general budget as to taking that out?
You asking me or her?
Whoever can answer it, I guess. I don't understand how it's going to come out. It's going to come out.
Bottom line is you're gonna have less cash in general fund for future use.
And that comes out and it clarifies, wipes this one clean.
Yeah, this would be.
What
a
it's saying
trans-
is the treasurer's books have a different balance with, when you take all the reconciling items into account than what our funds ledger shows. So this is gonna remove cash from the funds ledger to balance it.
And this was the best variance that they could get to because.
That amount.
Mhm.
Cause I remember going through the crash, right? That's what started a mess. And then we had some stealing going on, and then we had back in the treasurer's office about 10 or 12 years ago.
I wasn't here for the crash, but I know that there were issues there. And then, yes, there was the issue of the employee.
I will say, when I saw this amount in the audit, I was surprised it was that high,
High.
because the reports we've seen the last, I'll say, 3 years, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, they vary between 30,000 and 70,000 in that range. Okay, so that's kind of what I was expecting.
If I remember
What they, because I asked the question in our meetings, and they made the comment that those report balances they showed as far as shortages then did not include a lot of prior items that need to be accounted for as well. So they should have, in my opinion, had those included, so that's not a surprise. And they admitted they probably should have it, and they didn't. But bottom line is, it takes this number to bring the records to that reconciled point.
because I remember, I'm pretty sure you were president then, right, Jim, as the council,
When what?
during this crash and.
You know, I was on, but I wasn't the president then. I was early in my time, I believe. At least that's what I'm thinking. I may be wrong. Maybe I was president. Yeah, I may have been. I may have
I
been.
think you were, because
Yeah, I may have.
you and I kept talking about how much it just kept growing. Like all the trying to go back and piece it together, just kept growing and growing. And it was like, at one point, we were like $80-some thousand, and we still wouldn't.
And per Mary Jane, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, that's right.
Per Mary Jane, if we don't do anything about this, that will continue to be the case. You will continue to see it grow.
Well, it shouldn't grow.
Yeah,
Because anything happens,
but you will.
anything that happens to see it change now should be something that happened
Yeah.
currently, not in the
Yeah.
past. But, I asked this question, it'd be nice if we could really identify what it was, and I think the time was probably gonna take too long to get that done, so it's not, probably not worth doing that. But I asked the question because I'm thinking maybe there have been some funds that we collected as taxes in those years past that got distributed in excess of what they should have been. So maybe we shouldn't absorb all this in our general fund. And they said it's very possible, but they can't prove that. So it's, rather than trying to go back and do that, we're just gonna recommend we handle it this way to wipe it out and start fresh, is what it boils down to.
And
So I don't like it. I really don't like it from a detailed standpoint, but I think you have not much choice if you're gonna be reasonable about it.
And Mr. President, you was in on the actual closing of the audit, State Board of Accounts. You can,
Yeah, no, I have the same sentiment as Jim. I don't like the number, but I feel confident that Mary Jane with the State Board of Accounts is, this request is what needs to happen. I mean, as I've said it in many, the last 4 or 5 State Board of Accounts, I've always asked, what can we do? And it was never, there was never an opportunity to do anything in the past because the number never stayed the same. So with this recommendation, I feel like maybe that we can start a clean slate and it's the right thing to do for the State Board of Accounts.
Because really, if they had adjusted the records for the amounts shown in the last audit reports, the last 3 or 4, whatever it is, you'd still have this difference. You'd still have a substantial amount of difference that wouldn't have resolved it. So that was kind of an unusual response, I think, from the State Board of Accounts. Bottom line is, this number incorporates all those past numbers, at least it's supposed to. So it should give you a clean slate, starting 1/1 of 22. So anything that's happened 1/1 of 22 forward, if there's a problem, still come back. But if that's all been corrected,
Yeah.
it should be fine.
And I will point out that we are working, the treasurer's office is working with our tax software and financial software vendor. They have a cash book available through their software that we can use. It's much more modern, I would put it, as far as reporting goes. So what would be great is with this cash book, it will help deter any type of data input errors because all this information is going to automatically sync in from the auditor's office, from what we're inputting for our daily collections. So a lot of that information is going to be input directly. And they are working on a program for a bank reconciliation that's less complicated too. Again, I'm working with Mary Jane tomorrow. I've started going through 2022 with their proposed cash book corrections. And it's much better than where we have been. So Mary Jane's going to sit with me and go over that to see us getting on the right path to moving forward. So our goal is to get that cleaned up from where it has been and just get us in a good spot moving forward.
Is there any other questions or comments from the members? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion. Motion would be to transfer from the general fund unappropriated to, would you say the cash?
Yeah, it's really not transferring. You're just going to issue a check in that amount.
Issue
That'll be
check.
posted according to what the adjustment needs to be to balance it, so. It's going to be a disbursement from the general fund, unappropriated.
And it will be taken care of tomorrow. So there's no delay on that.
The disbursement from the general fund.
The fund balance you see in the report I've given you in the general fund, it's going to be reduced by that amount of money.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to accept that as presented, the $273,117.92 in the form of a reconciliation.
As they issue the claim, they'll have some documentation attached to that to support what that is too. So.
Second. Second. I have a motion from Mr. Lemming, a second from Mr. Hicks to disperse from the general fund $273,117.82. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Roebuck.
I want to thank you for taking care of this, Jim. Since I've been on here, I remember meeting a couple of times with State Board of Accounts and I just didn't know when we had an issue in one of the offices that we were embarrassed by. And I just have to say, when I was a young man, my checking account got all messed up and I didn't know what to do. I'd have written checks. I did just foolish stuff. And my dad, I remember him telling me, just whatever the bank says, just take it and go. And I did, and that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just going to start again and do it. And I appreciate you cleaning it up and taking care of it. Thank you.
But I never just take the bank balance and go, I make sure it's right.
You weren't young and foolish.
You don't do that today though, right, Mike?
Any other questions or comments? Public input? Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Lemming,
Yes.
Mr. Middlesworth.
Yes. Motion carries.
Okay. On to our next item here. The treasurer's office is proposing an ordinance for processing fee for a mobile home transfer moving permit. The treasurer's office receives several requests almost daily for a mobile home or transfer permit, whether it's a walk-in, emails, when park ownership changes. Each permit requires significant time and labor to achieve an office, from finding the correct parcel information or establishing if it's even a new parcel, making sure all documentation is available that's required from the state, completing the required state form, printing out the forms and having the taxpayer verify all the information is correct before we even seal stamp all the copies. And then copies are needed to be created for our office, the assessor's office, and the taxpayers. We are asking to incorporate a processing fee of $15 to offset the time of processing and printing the forms necessary. This cost will then go into the general fund. just to pinpoint, this year, as of December 5th, we've done 234 permits. At a $15 charge, that would have been $3,510. This need for mobile home permits or title transfers will only increase, as Ryan Malott from Area Plan explained at the December 5th Commissioners meeting. Each park is looking to get at capacity, so they're cramming as many mobile homes as they can and to get at their capacity. This year, bringing over 200 new mobile homes into parks. They're looking at next year bringing well over more than that. Ryan Malott also confirmed that this would not be a duplicate charge between either office. So this is not a charge that they have. This is not a charge that we currently have between either office. This is not an uncommon permit for treasurer's offices to charge. Actually, several treasurer's offices within the state have a permit fee. I've spoken directly with Monroe, Tippecanoe, Porter, Kosciuszko, and Wayne, just to name a few. We did have a couple of sample ordinances from those counties, and we sent those over to Justin in HR, and I believe he sent off those to Kyle Persinger to look over. I just want to pinpoint that this is a service that we provide for the constituents. From a department standpoint, there have been and will continue to be a need for these permits. And understanding the need and time required to fulfill these tasks, a $15 charge seems as a fair compensation for that. This is a service that the treasurer's office provides, so it's not like you can go anywhere else to get these forms completed. This is something specific to our office, so they come to us to fulfill that need. At the December 19th Commissioners meeting, Commissioner Wright stated it best when he said, "I had concerns that as a government entity, we were nickel and diming our constituents. However, they are the ones asking for the service. It's not costing any other constituents for their request. So $15 is a fair cost to overseeing the administration side of processing the permits and record keeping." At the December 19th Commissioners meeting, they did unanimously decide to approve the ordinance, which would be 8-2022, effective January 1st, 2023, pending the approval from the County Council. Again, thank you for your time and consideration on this.
Any questions or comments from the members? Well, when you looked at the other counties, what was their average?
Anywhere from $10 to $15.
And then how will it be tracked? So when you collect the $15, how you gonna track it?
So the $15 will automatically put in the receipt. So we'll quietest it in to send over to the auditor's office to get a receipt. So anyone asking for a mobile home permit will have the receipt for the $15 as well as the documentation for their permits.
It's gonna be kept through the software or through a receipt book?
It'll be kept through the software. Yeah, the Lao Financial. So it'll start in our office. We'll input the receipt for the $15 stating that it's for the mobile home title transfer permit fee. At that point, we'll take that permit over to the auditor's office. They'll enter it into the funds that it needs to go in. Once they have their site complete, we'll get the stamped paid copies. So that way we can provide one to the taxpayer.
What do you have to prove when you transfer title?
So what do the taxpayers have to bring in? Depending on if they have any documentation or not, we request that we have a copy of the title as well as like a bill of sale, because on the permit, you have to fill out the previous owner's name, telephone number, address, the new owner's name, telephone number, address. You also have to make sure that you're inputting the correct parcel information. So if that parcel isn't even created yet, you have to verify with the assessor's office that it's not even a parcel in the system. It's not, it'll be new inventory.
Okay.
So at that point, then they have to provide the sales cost of that, if they're acting on any agent's behalf, or if there's an agent acting on anyone else's behalf. So if they don't have that paperwork, then they have to go through the state to file for a lost and abandoned title, which then they have to go through several hoops to get that information for us so we can have the VIN, the make, the model, any information going through that. So there's quite a few documentations that we have to keep on file to prove that that's what it is. And then we have to make not only a copy of that for ourselves, but we make a copy for the assessor's office. That way they can take all of that information and input it into their data.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments from the members?
All that's been being done for free. Seems a little strange to me.
So the ordinance number is 8-22 or?
Yeah, should you decide to adopt it, we do have a copy of your signatures, so. This is the one
We
that,
don't need to say this one.
that's for you. I've got, so this is the one that the commissioners have signed.
Again, is there any other questions or comments from the members? If there are none, I entertain a motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Connor, a second from Mr. Lemming to approve the ordinance number 8-22. Any other questions or comments from the members? Public input?
Yeah,
Come to the podium and state your name and your address, please, for the record.
my name is Ryan Howell. I live at 2909 South Branson Street, Marion, Indiana. Just real quick, if you get rid of the permit, get rid of the permit fee. Cut the red tape. When we need a permit, well, we need all these permits for.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify that that permit's required through the state.
So I looked at those statutes when I put this ordinance together. It's required by the state to do the permit, so
Yeah.
treasurer's office has no leeway in it. They're required to do it. It's just an issue of whether they're gonna get paid anything for it or whether it's gonna be a free service.
And as a matter of fact, at one of our last conferences, we did speak with the BMV directly regarding this because a lot of the counties feel as though this is something that the BMV should be overseeing. But the BMV doesn't agree with that. So if we're gonna have to continue to do that, we feel as though if we're not being compensated, we should.
B and VH,
Yeah.
right?
In BMH, so you said.
Is there any other public input?
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Lemming,
Yes.
Mr. Middlesworth.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
I'll go ahead and pass this. around the state.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Eyes.
Thank you again, gentlemen, for everything this evening. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Strong all the time.
Okay, the next item under new business, item H, county auditor report with the transfers of appropriations within the general fund, transfers of appropriations within the auditors and eligible deduction fund, and the blanket approval to close 2022, the correct cash transfer from the general fund to the pretrial and diversion fund.
Yeah, okay, the first one would be, I guess the first three are kind of routine. First one deals with the general fund. You can see the list of transfers we're requesting there to balance accounts out. That's in the general fund. Item number two would be the ineligible deductions fund. Again, just a transfer to balance out accounts. And the third item would be, once we leave this meeting, there are things that occur between now and the end of the year to also make us require a balancing of accounts, so to speak. So you're giving a blanket approval to get those things balanced between now and end of the year. If there's something that hasn't come up to you to have transferred at this point. Normally they're pretty routine, pretty small in amount, but still need to get it done. So we're asking your blanket approval on that. Can we talk about the other items as well? Okay, the last item would be the transfer of cash from the general fund to the pretrial diversion fund. If you recall, last month, we did ask you to transfer some money from this pretrial diversion fund to one of our other deferred prosecution funds, I believe. Maybe it's an incentive fund. It was an incentive fund, I think. But anyway, we asked to transfer because we had the money in this fund to do it. Well, in the meantime, since that meeting, we were informed by the city of Marion that they had incorrectly given us too much money. So we need to refund some money to them out of this fund 2504 and our general fund. So bottom line is we need to transfer some money into this fund now to make it whole by the end of the year. And we're going to say, give us the authority to transfer up to $12,965. It's going to be less than that. In fact, Angie gave me a number today. It's going to be $11,835 at this point. But if you would go ahead and give us that approval, and whatever we have to transfer, we will, but it won't be any more than what this is. If we do expect some receipts to come in between now and end of the year too, less than that, but we don't know the exact amount yet.
Are there any questions or comments from the members regarding this request? There are none. I entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Connor, a second from Mr. Rohrbach to approve the following transfers within the county auditor's general fund, codified expenses to meeting compensation, 150. Codified expenses to supplies, 350, codified expenses to equipment, 625 within the auditors and eligible deduction fund, contractual services to dues and subscriptions in the amount of $660. Also, a blanket transfer for the end of the year of 2022. And then transfer from the general fund to the pretrial diversion fund and the amount of $12,965.
Now, we'll note for you guys too, probably that the pretrial diversion fund and some of those other incentive funds, they're gonna have to kind of analyze those things at the beginning of 23 and make sure they are, because they're gonna probably have to do some shifting to make sure that works like it should in 2023. So we don't come to this point.
Any other questions or comments from the members? Public input? Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Rohrbach,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Lemming,
Yes.
Mr. Middlesworth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Do want to mention to you as well, I didn't say back in my auditor's report, the State Board of Accounts reports for the 2021 audit are available to the public now. You can go online and get those if you want to. You go to the State Board of Accounts website and you can click on audit reports and put in, you want to see Grant County's 2021, and they'll come up for you. So they're available for your review if you want to see those things. Just letting you know that.
Thank you. Also, let's see, I think that concludes the new business. Nothing under old business, reports, resolutions, communications, general discussions. I did receive this evening, an appointment for the Indiana Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. Currently, Elizabeth Wright serving in that capacity. As years have, last few months, at least we've advertised the positions. So if we don't mind, we'll go ahead and advertise this and then appoint, or the committee could do a recommendation and then appoint the January meeting. Is a 2-week advertisement.
Do we have, Andy, if you get that for next week?
I'll be sending a legal next week anyway. We have
Okay.
an additional information.
So you could send that to them, and how does that, see, the next meeting is what, January the 18th?
Yes.
So you want to know interest by the 16th, is that Monday? That makes sense? So maybe we can put on the ad, notify the auditor's office and or members of the council by Monday the 16th, your interest.
Perfect. Okay,
Angie, do you have what you need there as far as what that's for? Because Shane got the email, I think, so you may need to have something from Shane to be able to word that properly.
I'll get this.
I'm sure Stacy has a prior.
Although we may not advertise this prior, I don't think. So,
I think we did it last
well,
year.
maybe, I don't know. If we did, she'll need to make sure she has what she needs to do that.
The other thing I'd like to recommend to this body, is Phil's retirement. I'm recommending that we create a committee to recommend a new attorney. That would comprise the president, the vice president, and Mr. Rohrbach, is the first, council member to state that he'd like to be involved. Also, I'd like to include the auditor as part of that process, in you. And make the create the committee to review and resumes of attorneys and make a recommendation to the full council. Is that consensus?
What's the timeline? Knowing that we have a meeting the 18th, can't do it before then. Is that correct?
Yeah, you couldn't, we have to approve it at the 18th meeting if we had somebody that the committee would recommend date. But I spoke to Phil a little bit about, would he prorated or, stay on if we didn't find somebody? And, comment on.
I said I'd help any way I can. I may not be here during the next meeting, so you'd have to let me participate, via the screen. If that's acceptable to you. I mean, I prefer to be here in person, actually. But I could do it that way if you need for me to. I can do that as well as I'll be around to answer any questions or do anything you need to have done in the meantime. That's not a problem.
Do you have any other comments or questions? Our next meeting is Wednesday, January the 18th.
And before everybody leaves, I do have some forms that the commissioner's office is going to ask each of you to sign. There are two forms for each of you. One is about nepotism policy, one is about conflict of interest. So I need to give each of you guys the forms for you to print your name on and sign. Okay, so I want to give those to you before you leave this evening.
If you don't mind, I'd love to get a picture after the meeting's over as well.
Make sure we do.
Picture. All right. Meeting.
Oh.
You want to keep that witnesses, please look at that.